Hello and welcome to the Goal Podcast, news and commentary from Gun Owners Action League, your leading voice for the Massachusetts gun owner. I'm Garrett, across the table from Jeff, also in studio. We got the man, the myth, the legend.
Larry Bird. No, Mike
Harris, Goals Director of Public Policy, is joining us. How's it going, brother?
Wonderly.
Well, good.
No,
Speaking of Celtics,
I guess it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yes. Speaking of Celtics,
the
Celtics brought it home last
back
night.
on top.
Yep.
Number 18.
18 titles. Yep. I saw a great video of this kid. He was like pulling down a street. It was like a crosswalk sign or something, and the cop just snatched him up. Like he just like got sucked into him like the cartoons, and he sucked into the police abyss over a fence, and everybody was quiet and like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hey,
where did Steve go?
He was right here. I mean, it was legit dangerous, like sparks flying from the thing, and they just,
of course,
snatched him, and off he went.
You go, man.
Well, so yeah, he's gonna have a great day.
What, like a diamond saw? Like,
they just yanked it down. I'm sure his arraignment went great. In the state of Massachusetts, if he's deemed now a criminal, that means he'll get probably free stuff for the rest of his life. They'll probably give him courtside seats next time.
He probably doesn't remember doing it.
Yeah, probably not. Alcohol may have been a factor.
What'd I do?
God willing. Well, congratulations to Celtics anyway. That's pretty cool.
You're not a Lakers fan, Mr. California, are you?
I have identified thus at some point in my life.
No.
I will say, though, that I was a Celtics fan in the 80s when they had that.
All right.
I was absolutely, even though I was in California at the time.
Fairweather Garrett.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. Who's winning? You align me. Go team. You align me with the current winning situation. Yes.
Who's winning? Them. Go them.
All right. So we got a news. Let's plug Nolan's thing. Yeah. So National African American Gun Association of Massachusetts is having their Juneteenth Range Day. Tickets are on sale now. Being held on Saturday, June 29th, Manchester Firing Line in Manchester, New Hampshire, starting at 1:30 p.m. You can find them on eventbrite.com and just search Bullets and Barbecue and you will find it.
Nice.
Cool. Price is $25 for NAGA members, $30 for non-members. If you don't have a firearm, no worries. They'll have some there. So definitely check them out. Have some fun. Great times, good people. We joined them for a shoot a couple months ago. We did. That was a lot of fun. Having an awesome time. We were going to have Nolan come on and plug his own event and talk about it a little bit, but we're happy to say he just got married this past weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Dude, how great is Nolan? He's such a good guy.
Sucker. Don't do it. Don't. Yeah, I totally forgot. I had the text ready to send to him, and I was then like scrolling on Instagram, and I saw the wedding photo from the day before.
Oh, boy,
I guess he won't be coming on.
So congratulations.
Huge congratulations. Congratulations to him, his lovely wife. If you are available on the 29th, go check them out. Great time. Great Second Amendment group, Second Amendment supporters. So at the Manchester Firing Line. Yeah, go take your magazines that you definitely don't own up to New Hampshire and have some fun.
Yeah.
Have a good one. That's awesome. All right. So you got a news piece out of Springfield. Yeah. So earlier this month, so there was a police officer that got shot in the line of duty, or shot on his way to work. Springfield police officer Nestor Santos sustained injuries to his face and leg while on the way to work. So the situation went down where Springfield PD Firearms Investigation Unit had a bunch of plainclothes officers doing their thing, investigating whatever they were doing, and a car just drove up and opened fire on them. Just started shooting at the cop.
So it was a drive-by.
Yep. Yeah, so basically, they were fired on. It was like 10:30 p.m. It was this Honda Civic. It fired on them, took off, hit two Mass DOT vehicles, two Mass DOT workers, ultimately crashed on I-91 where they were all arrested. While the search for that car was ongoing, a Jeep rolled up and began firing on another unmarked police vehicle. What the hell? In a busy intersection. That vehicle was struck several times. Thank God no one was injured. And then according to police reports, the Jeep's occupants then turned their attention to another similar unmarked vehicle that was being driven by Santos and started shooting at him.
Good Lord.
So those people are going to lose their LTCs if they're not careful.
Was this like Al-Qaeda? Like, was this a planned attack?
No,
what the hell?
A total of 7 individuals have been taken into custody, okay? Their ages are 31, 26, 3 18-year-olds, a 17-year-old, and a 16-year-old. Oh.
Oh, okay.
They believe they're in this cute little gang,
Suddenly the picture
and that they
becomes
were
clear.
having some little turf battle with another cute little gang.
The cops
Well-
were the cops the other gang. Sounds like the
it's-
cops were the other gang.
Well, watch
What
the
that's
hell?
not an unfair assessment.
Yeah, they rolled up on like 3 different unmarked cop cars.
That's unbelievable. Unreal.
Was that bad luck or good luck? Like, what the hell? That is wild.
So 5 of the suspects have previous arrest records on firearms charges, according to law enforcement.
Color me surprised.
Yeah.
The 26-year-old had an outstanding warrant on a firearms charge. The 16-year-old, 16.
Wait, do you mean he shouldn't have had a gun to begin with?
16 was out on
Is that what you're telling me?
I don't see how it's possible he
the
could have had a gun.
16-year-old, barely old enough to drive a vehicle, was out on bail in connection with another shooting. So Springfield Mayor Dominic Sarno
Yep.
said, and this is his quote, "Many of the individuals are young age, even a juvenile who was out after shooting another person. So the real help we need is from our court system
Oh.
and some of our judges to keep these repeat violent criminal offenders locked up off our streets and out of our neighborhoods."
That's
It's not just
fair.
the judges. We need you also need the DAs to
Yeah,
actually
right. To prosecute.
prosecute these crimes.
So prosecutors requested individuals be held without bail, and if I follow that arraignment correctly, they are being held without bail pending further hearings. And prosecutors said in court to the judge that they weren't sure what would be worse. If the individuals that are now in custody were knowingly firing on police officers, or if they're just randomly targeting vehicles they happen to think belong to people they don't like.
Well, that's what I mean. Is this
Yeah.
good luck? Was that
Yeah,
good luck or
really
bad
not.
luck? Like, what the hell?
Yikes.
So they had a dangerousness hearing on June 13th.
Oh, I wonder what the results of that was.
Well, here, Springfield
dangerous
District
to me.
Court judge ruled the suspect posed a danger to the public. They will remain in custody without bail, and they're due back in court on July 12th for the next hearing. The dangerousness hearing is meant to determine if they should be held without bail or conditions of release pending trial.
Yep. That's what.
So for this, they can be held up to 4 months. Latest update that I could find was Officer Santos has since been released from the hospital.
Good.
Springfield Police Chief Brian Keenan said the officer has a road ahead of him, but he's doing better. Can't wait to get back to work. So it sounds like he's going to be okay.
That's great.
But
Yeah.
Sounds like these cops were
it's
just
good
standing
in-
there.
Yeah.
well, they were, from what I understand, they were plainclothes officers doing some investigation into whatever shenanigans is going on in Springfield. And this
What the
group
hell is
of
going on in
this
Springfield?
group of children.
A bunch of shootings.
Apparently. Yikes.
This group of, largely children just started opening fire in busy intersections because,
Because they want to be gangsters.
they're
It's nerf or nothing, Jeff.
a 16-year-old who was already out, who was on bail for charges of another shooting.
Yeah. We
Repeat
shouldn't have a
offender.
gun to begin with.
So as we're going through this legislation to take away Garrett's
Especially a
firearms, my
Yeah.
firearms,
Yeah,
Mike's
and
firearms,
Our guns are the
our
problem.
licenses, you have these same people over and over and over again, and they just say, "Hey, just keep going back on the streets,
Yeah,
and
you're
you're
on
fine."
bail.
I hope he was at least using a non-large capacity long gun for these crimes.
There's all
Otherwise-
sorts of stuff. That
otherwise
has been
he was breaking the
Compensated
law.
FID.
Yeah.
I don't see how it's possible he could have had a gun at all because that would have been illegal.
Yeah, the laws make
know.
things impossible.
And I've read various accounts, and I'm not sure which is exactly correct, but I've read various accounts that says there were ARs involved. I've read accounts that said there were Glocks with switches involved. But I think it leans towards the fact of, as we're going through all this legislation, which we're going to talk about, is the problem the firearm, or is the problem the people who repeatedly over and over and over again break the law, abuse the rights and privileges that we have as American citizens, and suffer essentially no consequences for it ever? So naturally, my personal suspicion throughout the whole thing is that the committee on this whole firearms legislation has been waiting for some sort of watershed moment in order to bolster and justify whatever craziness they are or are not about to pull as we move towards the deadline for this session.
Can you imagine being that craven?
Again, but this story in particular, I think, again, they don't have the narrative that they're looking for with consistent repeat offenders shooting at police officers. So Yeah, surprisingly enough, this story didn't make major national headlines.
What a shock. Well, I'm glad that the officer's okay. It's
What a mess.
unlikely that, anything, well, obviously nothing's good going to come out of this, but what's going to happen? They're just going to street these guys again so that they can turn around and do it all over again. Meanwhile,
who knows?
Who's the DA out there?
We're the problem.
I think if there's enough public outcry, they'll probably receive some sort of punishment that's probably 50% of what they should actually get. I cannot imagine a judge or a defense attorney or a prosecutor looking at this situation and saying that a group of people can engage in that behavior consistently, repeatedly violate the law and have any business going back out into society. Just period. I'm sorry.
Like deliberately attacking police officers too. It's what it sounds like.
Well,
like
even if it wasn't,
what it sounds like,
and that's what the prosecutor said was
not sure if
what's scarier, them directly attacking law enforcement or them just opening fire in random busy intersections because they sort of think that maybe someone might be from a different 2 blocks over that they don't like.
I think they're both equally terrifying.
So
Yeah.
Well,
that would be one where I'm sure, in 6 months, a year, 2 years, or whenever they actually go to trial, it'll be quiet and off the radar. And
course.
probably,
sure. Yeah, plea him out and
They're gonna be exiled to Shelbyville.
just getting his
They're from Springfield to get it.
right, exiled to show you. All right. Well, so our main topic of conversation for the day.
A lot of court cases, a lot of legislative updates. But since we're still in the state of Massachusetts, what's going on with the legislative package and coming out of the State House?
So I don't really know how much I can put out there specifically, but we're hearing there's some lack of urgency on the side of the Senate, but we all kind of knew that anyways. But we are hearing that Rep. Day is really pushing this, and the Speaker came out and made a statement earlier talking about how he's going to get it done and it's going to be passed. It will come out of committee and it will be passed by the end of this session.
Meanwhile, though, I've seen 2 news reports saying, well, one thing that's not moving is the gun bill.
Yeah.
So.
But I think this might be one of those things where it's not going to go anywhere unless it does. And if it does break loose, it's gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah. Well, Mariano really hung his hat on this as kind of because if I'm not mistaken, he is retiring or
Him and Day
hasn't
and
said.
Cream, they feel like they all stuck their necks out. They're not gonna.
I think Mariano was making this kind of a pet project
Cream
on his way towards the end of his political career,
which is still bizarre to me.
But
he was the guy that when I worked for George Peterson. He was the guy in 2014 that we called and was like, hey, let's be reasonable, and fixed it with us. Like, I don't really understand what happened. It sounds like,
Well, naturally, hey, when the attention and the celebrity and the cheers and the pats on the back are coming from one direction,
right.
I think that's a motivating factor for someone who every so many years has to win a popularity contest to make their mortgage payments. You know what I mean? So,
are you referring to the speaker's race or his actual race?
Just in general, for career politicians, every so many years you have to apply for your job again, and you have to win that contest.
Right.
So as he's pressure coming in, I can see where someone's opinions would shift and change because. As we've talked about in a hyper majority that they have, how do you separate yourself from the group? You tack harder to the extremes.
Right. Well, that's like I don't know. Massachusetts is such a strange animal that way because as frustrating as it is to be a Republican in the Massachusetts legislature, I'm hearing it's just as frustrating to be like a left-wing progressive. If you look at all of the people that are retiring and leaving, there's kind of a common theme. The ones that are not elderly and leaving because of it's time are kind of the ones that are a little out there. So I'm talking about on the Democratic side. So
the psychos.
I don't know. I wouldn't. We can't characterize them that way and get stuff done up there. But but no, it's kind of it's weird because I've heard that it's just as difficult for the Sarah Peaks of the world to get things done as it is for the Joe McKenna's to get things done. So
yeah, because how do you separate yourself from the same team? You got to you got to find a way. So I think this was Mariano's pet project. He tasked Day with it. So now it's Michael Day really fumbled the football on the Speaker's project. And I think
not yet. He hasn't.
I think made a lot of enemies and burned a lot of bridges across the state based on how he did things.
I hope so.
Based on the lies, based on going into closed door sessions and not having any answers for people.
It so much he pissed off people from both sides.
Yeah.
He's like the Johnny Manziel of gun control.
But now they're in CYA mode. They got to get something out. They got to get something together.
Yeah.
And as it's coming towards the finish line, where it's like, hey, you, like Garrett said, you all stuck your neck out on this real hard. So
I don't know. I've been saying this recently to people, and if you look at the way the two chambers treated this bill, it speaks a lot to the prioritization that each of them have given it. So Mike Day, Chair Judiciary, that's a functioning portion of the legislative process. That is where judicial related bills go to be handled.
Yeah, it's procedural. Like they do a lot of procedural stuff.
Yep. So, but I'm just saying, just like any other committee, it's important for bills related to the subject matter to go through the proper committee. It's a majority leader, on the other hand. There's nothing in the rules about the majority leader doing anything that has to directly relate to like the legislative process. Like it's a whip type role. It's a political role.
Yeah.
It's not a functional part. I mean, it's in the rules but if you lost to the majority leader tomorrow and they had to fill the new one, nothing would really change. It's mostly a political role.
Okay.
So I think that kind of speaks to the way that the two leaders of the chambers were treating the topic itself, not just the bill, but the topic. So I think, and we all know this, this was not one of President Spilka's main priorities for this session.
Yeah.
She's focused on some other stuff. But Ron Mariano was like full bore into it. Let's get it done.
Has to do this. Yeah.
So I think the fact that he assigned a very powerful committee to this, and the Senate president assigned her chief political operative in the Senate to do it, kind of speaks to the priority.
Demonstrated difference in the priority.
Yeah. So I think she was kind of treating it as a political football more than a legislative priority.
Yeah.
What they say out loud versus what they do is often very different.
Yeah, but I don't think
anyone going to stop them from passing.
Of course not. Of course not. But I'm saying it can go either way. So the fact that her number two is there in the room and is in charge of the Senate's version of this gives her a lot of sway and information about what's happening in the committee itself. And they can just walk away from it if they really want to. So I think if there's, yes and no. I mean, but I also think given those types of moves, if we start to see certain things move on the House side that President Spilka had spoken about at the beginning of session, and what her priorities are, we might be in trouble because her top political operative is in charge of it.
Yeah.
So
you don't want to see people start shaking hands and being friendly.
Right. Exactly. So that's the thing.
But I also think at the same time that none of them want to be the person that stopped this whole bill either. Mm-hmm. Within their own districts, and especially, they've been rather staunch advocates for firearms legislation, firearms control, the anti-civil.
Unless you're Joe McKenna, he'd like to be the guy that stops it.
I feel for that guy.
And I honestly think Bruce Tarr would too. I know there's some. I believe.
Well, I'm going to reserve my words for that.
No one was more disappointed than I was that day, but I don't. If he had his druthers, I'm sure it wouldn't be in this. If he was the Senate president, I don't think we'd be seeing this bill.
Yeah, well, that didn't. In fairness, though, and I'm not on the inside.
I know,
but in fairness, that didn't stop him from cheerleading for it.
No, I understand.
So either way,
though.
But either way, so they have until the end of the session. That's the end of July. They're gonna come out with something at some point. So the question is, sometime over the next 6 weeks, does the turd sandwich have the crust cut off? Is it cut on the diagonal?
I doubt it. I think we're gonna get the full length and girth, or nothing at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, we have these two bills that are currently moving, H2305 and H2359. 2305 filed by Marjorie Decker wants to make the State House polling places and demonstrations sensitive places, and then the other one filed by Linsky. Not surprising, but it makes pretty much
that plus everything else
everywhere underneath the blue sky is a sensitive place.
If it's somewhere where the public has access to that.
Yeah, right. You cease to basically make pretty much everything except your own basement to be a sensitive place. So, do we have any movement on these two bills?
No. So they've both been ordered to a third reading. So I don't know if we can walk through the legislative.
Yeah,
process
walk through the process real quick.
So, bill gets filed. Depending on when it gets filed, it gets assigned to a committee. If it doesn't get filed timely, it has to go to rules first, and then they assign it. But initially, if it's before the deadline, the clerk will send it to the proper committee. It goes to the committee. It gets a hearing. It gets a report, yay or nay, or a ought to pass or ought not to pass, or a study order. Once it comes out, it goes to the Committee on House Steering and Policy before it gets a second reading.
Okay.
And they're the ones who just set the schedule.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so that's kind of just what that is. But it's also a place where they get to make edits, not like substantive edits, but
clean it,
proper stuff, formatting,
stuff like that.
Proper references, things like that. There's a lot of lawyers in there. But anyways, so steering and policy and scheduling will schedule it for a second reading. Then it will be read second on the floor, often not. And then it goes to the Committee on Bills in the third reading, where it will be further analyzed, edited. It will get an official summary, all that crap from leadership. And then it kind of just sits there until the leadership decides what's going to happen next.
To a vote.
Yep. And then it will go to third reading on the House floor, and then it goes to the floor for a vote.
Okay. So right now, these two bills are in that standby committee.
They're in third reading.
Committee on the third reading.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
per the Massachusetts Constitution, the legislature, both chambers have to meet every 72 hours.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Especially if you think about the fact that they were taking horses and buggies back and forth to Springfield, but that's here nor there. But they have to meet every 72 hours, and they don't have giant formal session every single time. And formal session is exactly what you think of when you think of a legislative session. Everybody's
big room full of people. Exactly. The galleries are full.
Yep.
It's
They're debating. They're talking. They're reading stuff. They're yelling at each other. They're voting on things. An informal session is where all the formal sessions where all the controversial stuff happens, where all the big votes are taken on the budget and all that stuff. Informal session is supposed to be non-controversial and administrative things. Like if we're
going to rename the state cookie.
Yeah.
Or this guy needs, this guy needs
actually
hours.
That could be contentious, the state cookie there.
Yeah. Or this guy needs, pension hours or something like that.
Yeah, like if a state worker has gets seriously ill, they can establish a sick leave bank for them. Or if they want to rename a bridge after a World War II veteran or something like that. They often do that stuff there.
Stuff that's not supposed to be life-changing.
And they also do administrative things, which in some cases is a huge problem, because oftentimes these guys will take pieces of legislation like these two we're talking about and just do administrative movements on them, which
just
is what
by
happened.
The way, we'd like to
exactly. So during informal session, anybody can object, or any member of the legislature can object to something happening on the floor.
This is so critical.
And that's the game.
Yeah.
That's it. That shuts down the day. They gavelled in already. That it's over. It can't go anywhere else, and the session ends.
So as an opposition member, we're going to put a spotlight right on them.
They make
it's like the only power that they have that they can execute in this kind of a majority is to stand up and say, no, we're actually going to do this officially.
Make them do it, and they can force them to do it in public under a roll call vote if they want to. They can call for a roll call. They can object to things. They can
the only power that they can execute.
It's literally the most powerful thing that they can do. And so many times, with these two bills and with 4420, we saw these administrative steps be taken during informal session with a member of the opposition party present, either looking at their phone or making jokes or just sitting there not listening,
not exercising that one
crucial
power,
piece of
They could have put a stop to it. Maybe not forever.
No, but
they could have forced it to go into a formal session.
Forces it to go to formal session where it's public
And instead, they're sitting there scrolling Facebook or whatever instead of, Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's the biggest disappointment for me through this whole thing, because it's right there. Just grab it.
You are so overwhelmed by a majority. It is the only power that you have. Exercise it, for God's sake.
There's so much fear about your earmarks and how much money you can bring back to your district.
Committee assignments. Republican committees. All of the Republicans are in committees. Right?
Yeah, well,
because there's only like 5 of them.
Yeah.
Yep. But the budget is used as a weapon against the minority party in such a way that is just that.
It's disgusting.
It renders them completely impotent.
Sit down and shut up, or you don't get your earmarks.
And in turn, it also takes them out of the spotlight. Nobody picks up a microphone or goes to a news outlet and says anything about this, and their numbers just get smaller and smaller because they're not there. So I don't know what you do about this. I guess you got to go back to your, if you have any principles, you got to go back to your town and say like, hey, we're not getting the baseball field this year.
Sorry, guys. Yeah.
Because we need to hold these people accountable. Sorry. It's not my fault. It's theirs.
But they can't stomach doing that.
Yeah. I took a
principled stand.
I took a principled stand, and they took away your baseball field.
Sorry, guys. Yeah.
Sorry.
They did it.
Yeah, and nobody has the guts to do that. All it takes for evil to succeed is for good men to stand by and do nothing.
There you go.
This is that. Like,
it's emblematic. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, this is that situation. That's what this is. If you have a principle, I mean, if you agree with us, cool. Like, go do something about it. If you don't, like, don't give us lip service. Just say you're not with us. We handle it. There's other avenues for us to keep our civil rights. Yeah. But, if you have principles, like, act on them. That's part of the fun of being in the minority party. You
get to stand up and say, no, I'm principled. Right. Even if you know it's going to pass anyway.
And it's not like they don't expect it from you. You're the opposition. Like, go.
Just say no for the fun of it. Yeah. Just say, hey, we haven't done this in a while, just so we know that the process still works.
Right.
Let's,
we're gonna force this to formal session.
Work the shoulders a little bit.
Works. Yeah.
They would all malfunction in the informal session. Whoever is presiding over it would just be like,
what?
It
what
blows my mind.
I can't just go in the reading and
it blows my mind to watch this. Now, these are people who are at work doing their job that they're paid to do, and the guy is sitting on camera in front of the in public, just sitting there scrolling his phone,
not listening
as legislative things are going on.
Not listening. Not
I cannot imagine for the life of me being on a conference call with my bosses and people of the company that's visible to the customers, and sitting there and scrolling my social media feed all slumped back like, oh my God, I can't believe I actually have to be at work today.
Yeah.
Yep.
In any other business, they would go, listen, you need to turn that attitude around or you're going to be fired.
All right. Well, so that's the status of those two bills. So they're sitting in the committee on the third reading. They're probably going to be called out. They're probably going to get voted on.
Maybe not.
Who knows?
We don't know.
Okay. All right. We don't know.
I mean, those were both bills were part of that list of 58 from that November,
from last year,
the November 28th hearing,
from the quote unquote hearing from November. Yeah.
But they're all timely filed bills that constitutionally.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, so when we had Jim on last time, we we're like, we don't really know why they would have gone with those bills, but I mean, anything at this point is really speculation. We should just move on.
And I don't want to speculate on it because there's a lot of conjecture, and it's not productive. I don't.
So the current state of the union is those two bills are in third reading.
Yeah.
The conference committee, we don't know what is going to go on. We have what we think is going to go on. I know what I think is going to go on, and I don't think it's good. They've got another 6 weeks or so before the end of the session. They have been known to throw bills out at 8:00 p.m. on the very last day of session. So it's not over till it's over.
There's a supplemental budget that they're working on. Actually,
That's due this week.
yeah, it's due this week.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was on vacation. I was away last week. It was my 10-year anniversary. It was the first time my wife and I got away without the kids in 5 years.
Wow.
So, I'm a little.
Congratulations,
I
man.
got to unplug for a week, but I was also terrified that something was going to happen
While you were away.
So I
my God.
my wife didn't bring her computer with her, but I secretly squirreled away my iPad so I could have it just in case. But so I'm kind of coming back to the world on this stuff this week.
Well, so budget's due this week. The supplemental budget's due this week.
Yep.
And then we've got, like we said, 6 weeks until.
But honestly, we're probably going to see an emergency supplemental before they get out of session.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that's the state of things. I guess we'll see, right? Obviously, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll be here, as soon as anything happens. We'll be hearing from us. We'll be hearing from Jim, hearing from you. In other news, let's kick it up to the national level. Let's talk.
Let's take
Supreme Court.
Let's take a little white pill.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's a little.
Let's
It's a
talk good
little.
stuff
This is a little white pill. A little.
So this past week, June 14th, 2024, we got the decision on Cargill v. Garland. And I was actually a little surprised at this. I had kind of a pessimistic outlook on this case when it was argued.
Because it just feels so nonsensical.
I think they got it because at the time, and this is what I said, and I'm going to stick with it, I thought they got way too in the weeds on the terminology of what exactly a trigger is versus what it isn't.
That's what these nerds do.
When the real question to me was division of power.
Well, that's
and it turns out,
Yeah.
And it turns
that's exactly what the decision.
well, it turns
is.
out they answered both questions.
Yep.
So 6-3 decision, the court ruled the ATF's de facto ban on bump stocks is in fact unconstitutional. The decision was penned by Justice Clarence Thomas. Thank you very much. With Chief Justice John Roberts, Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett joining. Alito wrote a concurring opinion. Justice Sotomayor wrote the dissension, who was joined by Kagan and Jackson. No surprise there.
Yep.
The entire decision is 42 pages. It's roughly split about 50-50 on the decision, the dissent.
Yep.
That's one of the blessings that has come with like an extra blessing that's come with these decisions is Clarence Thomas is not very verbose.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he says he writes a decision.
very
he's
plain.
like, there it is. So,
Great.
yeah.
Very much enjoyed it. There's, I encourage people to read the whole thing. It's 42 pages. It's really not that bad.
I read it on
It's,
the plane on my way home.
It's not 42 pages of really, really dense text. It did get a little, wordy.
It is 5 or 6 pages of FPC content.
And there's,
Yes, there are.
and there are pictures in it.
I know.
Yes,
There's
there
pictures.
are.
Pretty awesome.
To me, not to me, but facially, it really turns on the definition of a machine gun, right? The NFA, Gun Control Act, all the machine gun stuff. Congress has seen fit to define a machine gun
Based upon its trigger.
Operation of firing more than one shot per trigger pull. It's in the law. That's the way it's written. It's very, very clear the way that they wrote it. So what happened here is that after the Vegas shooting, like a year after the Vegas shooting, as I recall, Trump went to the ATF. Now the ATF has for years. The ATF has said
10 years.
yeah,
Because
right.
they were invented in 2002.
They're like, every time somebody asks them, they say, no, these are unregulated accessories. They're good to go, unregulated. And then this one time Trump says, are you sure? And they say, well, actually, maybe let's take another look at it. And
I
suddenly,
see a
because
sliver of light. Let's dive through it.
And so since now suddenly we have the impetus to reinterpret things, and the ATF said, and this has actually got them in trouble with the court, they said, well, not only are they machine guns, but they've always been machine guns. They've always been illegal. And the court, I think it was Alito, actually called them out and was like, no. Right. That's not what this is about.
So from Thomas's decision, a bump stock does not alter the basic mechanics of bump firing. As with any semi-automatic firearm, the trigger still must be released and engaged to fire each additional shot. For many years, the ATF took the position that semi-automatic rifles equipped with bump stocks cannot fire automatically on more than 10 separate occasions. Over several administrations, they came out with this with that guidance.
Yeah.
They abruptly reversed course in response to a mass shooting in Las Vegas. August. This tragedy created tremendous political pressure to outlaw bump stocks nationwide. ATF's about face drew criticism from some observers, including those who agreed that bump stocks should be banned. And then Thomas, I love him for this, quoted of all people Senator Dianne Feinstein, who warned at the time the ATF lacked the statutory authority to prohibit bump stocks, explaining that it hinged on, her words, dubious analysis. So they said the final rule repudiated ATF's previous guidance. Then the court held that a semi-automatic rifle equipped with a bump stock is not a machine gun because it cannot fire more than one round or more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. And even if it could not do so automatically. Right. So they debunked the entire premise that a bump stock is itself a machine gun. They debunked the entire premise that it converts a rifle into a machine gun. So that is full off the table. Not a machine gun. Yeah. Not going to be a machine gun.
It's facially not a machine gun. If you know anything about how bump stocks work, right? If you don't know, and I'm sure everybody who listens to us does, but it's basically a shell, right? That fits under your semi-auto rifle. The whole idea is that it holds your finger still while the action of the rifle, the recoil acting against the forward pressure of your hand, forces the trigger up against your trigger finger repeatedly.
Exactly.
So you get a higher rate of fire than you would pulling the trigger manually. But
I do like on page 2.
Still one activation.
Well, Clarence Thomas addressed that. Clarence Thomas addressed that in a decision. He said, moreover, rifles with bump stocks, it's indistinguishable from another firearm. The ATF concedes cannot fire multiple shots automatically.
I do like on page 2 how he says bump firing is a balancing act and describes how to do it.
It said it does not convert a semi-automatic rifle into a machine gun any more than a shooter with a lightning fast finger does.
Yes.
Exactly. Get Jerry Mitchell.
Jerry Michalak is a machine gun.
And they went further and they said the ATF conceded previously that even if you continuously engage a trigger, that doesn't necessarily make something a machine gun if there's some other action that has to happen.
FRTs.
Well, no, not even FRTs, because the dissenting opinion tried to rely on the fact of, it's a pushing forward motion that's actually engaging the whole situation. So that's what they kind of
dive into mechanics as well.
Well, Thomas referenced the Ithaca Model 37 shotgun, which allows a shooter to slam fire. So press and hold down the trigger continuously, and the moving of the pump action is what cycles the firearm.
Do they consider that a machine gun?
The ATF has always held that the Mythical Model 37 is not a machine gun.
Well, there you go.
So Thomas finished in any event Congress
57 too.
Thomas finished in any event Congress could have linked the definition of a machine gun to a weapon's rate of fire, but it's never our job to rewrite statutory tests under the banner of speculation about what Congress might have done.
I love that.
And then Alito wrote a concurring opinion saying that Congress can amend the law and perhaps would have done so already if ATF had stuck with its earlier interpretation. Now that the situation is clear, Congress can act. So this had nothing to do with anything other than, besides debunking the entire fact that this is a machine gun, this is a separation of powers. This is Civics 101.
Yeah, of course.
It wasn't in the law. The executive's job is to execute the law as written, not reinterpreted as to what they wish it would have said.
Political wins.
And it's a separation of powers case couched in the Second Amendment.
Again, they're just saying, if you want to change the law, call your representative.
It was less about, whether you could own a bump stock or not own a bump stock, because that's a matter for Congress.
Or your state legislature, apparently.
Legislature, right?
Because they're still illegal here.
Yep, here in Massachusetts. And
if you have an LTC.
Yeah, right. Apparently they're okay if you have
How do you have an FID?
Oh, God.
Mini 14 bump stocks all around.
All right. This is about whether or not the ATF overstepped their authority in reinterpreting the NFA in order to basically classify these things as machine guns. That's clearly, to me, what they did, right? They took something that is facially not a machine gun, and because they were applied in political pressure, the winds changed or whatever, they said, well, actually, we're going to reinterpret this in the absence of any new legislation, we're just going to reinterpret this and call these things machine guns. Therefore, everybody who's bought one, made one, sold one, whatever, you're all felons now.
Yeah. I think,
and it was a confiscation order. There was no
it was absolutely a confiscation order.
There was no like.
That's how that's how he got standing to. That's how Cargill got standing to file this case.
So not like, okay, we're going to ban these things for sale or production or whatever. It was a confiscation order. If you had one, you were going to be a felon.
Was it 90 days?
They gave 90 days.
Yeah, you had to either destroy it or turn it in, which nobody actually did. By the way, I mean, no, the compliance level on it was ridiculous. What, 2 or 3 got turned in?
Which they casually don't mention because they don't want to come off as the feckless executive employees that they are.
Right.
And Cargill the only reason he turned his over was so that he could file this case.
Exactly.
I mean, this thing, because it was written before he drove over to the police station.
Yeah.
He filed it 9 minutes later.
Well,
as far as I know, nobody's been charged under it anyway. No. So it's like
because it was dubious from the beginning. They knew that,
and they knew that this was going to come down.
Yeah, exactly.
Ridiculous.
Well, so I love how Clarence Thomas wrote this opinion. He essentially sat them down he essentially took the DOJ, sat them in little kindergarten school desks and held up pictures in front of them and said, "This is what it says. It means this. You can't do this."
That's right. Yeah.
So it was he took the most insulting road possible.
He was
to tell them that exactly to tell them that they overstepped. It's a masterpiece.
So there are some gems in the dissenting opinion too. Typically, a dissenting opinion is written to bolster a differing of opinion, but I would say that Justice Sotomayor wrote a lot of things that are actually rather beneficial to the Second Amendment argument.
Oh, you mean like the common
use? Yeah.
In reference to the Vegas shooter, he did so by affixing bump stocks to commonly available semi-automatic rifles.
Oh,
I don't know if we're going to gain anything by that, but it sure is. It's a moral victory.
I would love to stitch that onto a pillow and send it to her.
I'd love to see it brought up in argument. This court said that these are,
She also wrote, "A machine gun does not fire itself. So thank you for reminding us that guns don't get up and do things on their own."
Yeah.
I mean, I do appreciate that argument for what she's saying.
It speaks to that all of this, and I'm putting bunny quotes around this, gun violence that they love to focus on isn't the firearm. It's an individual making a conscious decision to
hurt someone,
to take a tool and hurt someone with it. Yeah. There was an interesting line in the dissent that a little piece of language that stuck out to me, and I want to see if it sticks out to you. Sotomayor wrote, "Today the majority forgets that principle and substitutes its own view of what constitutes a machine gun. The majority's artificially narrow definition hamstrings the government's efforts."
Hey, I've heard that word before. Hamstrings the government's efforts.
That was Jackson's contribution.
That's right. That was Jackson's contribution last time. This is exactly the kind of thing that makes me read this, is that the dissent being driven by outcome is because
that's fair.
We're artificially expanding the definition of machine gun. No, read the definition of machine gun, read the description of what a bump stock does. I don't care what their intent was. The law says what the law says. Right. And they chose to write it that way. Who is it, Thomas? Somebody said that, if they're going to put a definition in the law, who are we to not follow that?
It's not the justice's job to reinterpret the law to mean what they think it should mean now,
or what they thought Congress meant, or anything else. They put a definition in there. Follow it.
Well, funny enough, even this is about machine guns, but funny enough, it does speak to the odd. It speaks to the principles that some people hold about, or the opinion that your rights come from government, where your rights come from, I guess, where your rights come from. So this is about machine guns, actually, and not to throw our good friend Senator Mike Moore under the bus, but Jim tells the story a lot, and it's emblematic of an attitude that is just so un-American to me. They were talking about having a machine gun shoot And Moore said, he's like, wait, there's nothing in the law that allows you to do that. And he's like, whoa,
wait a minute. That's not how laws work.
That's not how this works. You have it backwards, sir. So, yeah, I mean,
completely backwards.
But that's how this reads. It hamstrings the government's ability to take things away from you. It's like, well, that's what it's supposed to. That's literally what the Constitution is.
That's the whole point.
It's the guardrails that keep the government from driving off the road into people's backyards. Like that's the whole point.
And that's the same thing. And I agree with Jim when we talk about the importance of words and what words mean is that when they talk about the government has the right to do things, it's like the government doesn't have rights. The government's agents don't have rights. They have authorities. Once he pointed that out to me, and now I hear that word more often. Yeah, I think the idea of saying that the government itself has rights is misplacing what's happening there. And I think if they said, well, the government has the authority to do this, it would reframe it in a way where it would make more sense to the average person to say, well, the police have instead of saying the police have the right to search your vehicle, well, they have the authority to search your vehicle. It outlines a different perspective of where the presumption of innocence
and that is in a uniquely American way. That is an invention of this country, that authority is derived from the governed.
Yeah.
So that is inherently
consent of the people.
Yes, that is inherently American. It just smacks of a lack of understanding or even an abundance of contempt for the Constitution itself and the idea of self-governance.
Well, so reactions to the court case, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of varying reactions. I've seen a lot of people post online.
Oh, the wine moms on X.
Well, no, I've seen a lot of people post pictures of bump stock saying like, "Oh, look what washed up from the boat accident."
Right.
To those people, I would say, my heart is with you. I think it's very funny. I would rather you text that to your friends and post it online because
No, it's what they need to
give them the finger.
No. Well,
publicly.
There's a reason why. I have a reason why is that. So the decision came out that this is going to be a topic for the legislature. I don't see a lot of value add to do that and throw your finger up just to make a point. To me, it's like take the victory.
You get to do that
anyway.
No,
they're going to do that anyway. I don't see it down. To me, let the middle finger fly.
Yeah.
Reserving that middle finger is not going to make them go, oh, okay, well,
I don't.
In my opinion, before, like, again, the decision is not the end. The decision is not the end.
Okay.
So until there is final resolution on everything, and we go, okay, this is how everything has shaken out. I don't think it's necessarily a wise idea, a wise decision to go to like do the snarky. Look what I've had this whole time.
I disagree.
So you see it as stirring up the hornet's nest.
I don't agree with that at
all. As they're going to do what they want to do anyway. I mean, Schumer came out immediately. With his thing,
and I bet you his version of the bill doesn't have a grandfather clause, but everyone else's will, or they'll try, or if it gets moving, they'll have one that gets put in. Well, and who would be grandfathered in except for the people that kept them?
So about this, so Martin Heinrich, the Democrat in New Mexico, he put this bill forward. The Bump Act,
the Bump Act,
banning unlawful machine gun parts bill.
Oh, I saw it. I cringed at it.
So this guy, he actually put this legislation forth last year. This is the same bill he tried to get passed last year. Didn't go anywhere. Okay, that's why it's already written and standing by. So Schumer comes off of this decision. He goes, "Oh well, we're gonna get this done through unanimous consent."
Here I was impressed that this guy read the opinion and he didn't.
No. This was a piece of crap that he wrote.
I didn't realize that
last year or the year before. He tried.
I was actually like kind of proud of him for a minute.
Well, you can put that away.
No, it went away.
Well, details of this bill. So it is it would prohibit the import, sale, manufacture, transfer, receipt, or possession, a device that is primarily designed or redesigned to increase the rate of fire when attached to a semi-automatic firearm. So this really isn't even like a bump stock thing. This is just
this is everything.
This is a gun control wish list thing.
It's FRTs, it's
same thing. Any device combination of parts, yada yada yada, to increase the rate. Functions to increase the rate of firing from a firearm, and it bans a semi-automatic firearm that has been modified to increase the rate of fire.
Yeah.
That's all it says.
What does that mean?
What? That means lighter trigger pulls.
Lighter trigger spring, polished, all that stuff. Yeah.
So again, that gets into the territory of like, if you maintain your firearm, then it's a problem.
Right. So this guy, Martin Heinrich out of New Mexico.
What a sneaky
put
Pete.
This thing up. Well, so this was absolutely planned. There's no doubt in my mind that this guy and Schumer and
Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson
could be,
because there's been leaks. There's been a few leaks before,
on like Friday afternoon, and said this is what we're going to do.
There's been a few leaks out of the Supreme Court, recently.
You're going to dust off this piece of crap legislation. We're going to put it before the Senate. We're going to go for you are going to make an appeal for unanimous consent, and then I, Schumer, am going to go do the circuit of all of the media outlets and say,
look at all the babies they want to kill.
Yeah, exactly right. The Republicans, the MAGAs, they want to kill all the babies, right? So that's
shouldn't they like this? They like country music, don't they?
Exactly what happened, and they put it out there. And today, just this afternoon, as a matter of fact, they had 20 co-sponsors. All Democrats plus
I bet I can name them all.
I bet you could. Yeah. All Democrats plus man.
We knew they were going to. But speaking to that point, so yeah, they're already on the campaign trail as far as pushing this bump stock ban. So Senator Chris Murphy was already on.
But you're right. It's not going to be
CNN
about bump stocks. It's going to be about everything.
No, they're going after
Chris Murphy.
They are going to pivot off their last thing, and they're going to pivot to expand the definition of machine guns to now encompass anything they want to encompass.
Yeah, of course.
Probably to include, like they said, any semi-automatic firearm that's been modified. There's been state level legislation already pushed to ban Glocks because they're too easily convertible into, with Glock switches. Guns, which they're casually not even discussing where those switches come from. They're being shipped in from other countries.
All right. Well, so Martin Heinrich and Chuck Schumer did try their ploy. They had 20 co-sponsors as of this afternoon. But Senator Pete Ricketts, Republican out of Nebraska, objected to the bill, which puts the end to the whole unanimous consent.
Who was it?
It was Pete Ricketts.
Oh, Ricketts. You said that earlier.
Yeah, out of Nebraska.
He needs to eat a lime or two, huh?
Right. He was the
levity for you.
He was the one that they picked. So to object to it. So unanimous consent. If it's not unanimous, it can't go forward.
Yeah, so they're probably going to push for a roll call vote, which it's eventually not going to pass, and then they'll have to figure something out.
Right.
And they're going
to... And I suspect that Schumer knew this. He just wanted to be able to go to the news people and do the circuit and say...
And they'll just smear each other with...
MAGA Republicans are just trying to kill babies.
Yep. Well, in that interview with Chris Murphy, he was already putting it out, essentially saying that, anybody who's against this is, again, he's constantly referring to them as machine guns, even though that was clearly debunked in the and ruled against in this decision. But saying that
purposeful.
Hey, any common sense person does not want criminals to get machine guns, and that's how they're phrasing it. And that's
the language battle.
So in the Senate, there would need, I think it's 9 Republicans to cross the aisle to support this bill in order for it to pass. Yeah. One, there's already some squishy ones. Mitt Romney said he would go for it.
He's the worst.
That's Mitt Romney.
Well, he signed the 04 bill. He sucks.
But they would need to swing another 8 votes, which I don't think they have, and I don't foresee the House getting something through in any reasonable fashion before the end of the year.
For it, not right now.
Yeah.
So, the kind of elephant in the room with all of this, with this whole thing, and again, the whole podcast tries not to be left right, but this ban was instigated at the political insistence of Donald Trump.
Of course it was.
This was his deal. Now, I've had discussions with people who's like, oh, he's playing 4D chess because he knew it was going to get tossed out. It's like, you know what? No, I'm calling this one. I'm taking this one at face value. He did that because he thought it was politically expedient at the time. He didn't get any credit for it. It's not like that every time people said, God bless Donald Trump.
Appropriately horrified by
the worst mass shooting in American history.
Just like all of us were.
Yes.
And he
absolutely terrible.
And he acted on impulse.
He rejected, he reacted to it in the most politically expedient way that he thought was going to, that he thought would gain him points.
I think he did what he normally does, which is just kind of say a lot of things.
Yeah.
And he'll say, some things that are on one side and some things that are on the other side. And he goes, well, maybe, well, what about A? And then, well, what about B? I don't know. Maybe we'll do both. Maybe we'll do neither. Yeah. And then he like shuffles out of the room and everybody goes, what just happened?
Yeah.
I think the ATF as an executive branch organization heard their executives say, maybe we should do something like this. And I don't think they've ever looked at an opportunity to grab power for themselves and turned it down.
In this case, Trump was explicit.
He was.
He was explicit about, we got to do something about bump.
Yeah, he was. But again, he could have done something about bump stocks without handing the ATF the keys to the keys to brace bands.
Funny that you should bring that up, because that was a segue right into the next topic. Yeah. Following Trump's lead, or whoever, this goes back further than Trump, but following that lead of handing, power over to executive agencies, Joe Biden's pistol brace ban just recently took a hit in what is it, Texas District Court?
Yeah, something like that.
So that's actually a national vacatur, I believe. That was, even though it's a U.S. court for Texas, I believe that was a national vacate of the. I'm pretty sure that I read that. So the 12-page decision, Texas-based U.S. District Court vacated the rule that would have led to the destruction of millions of firearms, etc. The court also blasted ATF for thinking it could change a long-established exemption overnight to make the ownership of firearms illegal. So, gotta love that.
There we go.
Yeah.
And hey, just because they ruled that way doesn't mean you have to post pictures of it online.
It sure
I wouldn't go posting pictures of it online quite yet.
Who is Publius? Who is Publius?
Who is that guy?
Who is this?
Listen, man, have a little mystery about yourself. Why do you want everybody to know everything that you have?
You don't, but there's certain circumstances where it's appropriate, where you need to poke the king in the eye.
There you go.
It's appropriate.
I like it. All right, anyway,
Thomas Paine.
So throw
that guy in jail.
Hey, listen. All right, post a picture of your gun safe online.
I said sometimes it's appropriate, Jeff.
You guys. So the pistol brace thing was another case.
I still like you.
What gun safe?
So the pistol brace thing was another case where the ATF said, no, these things are great. These things
it's the exact same thing.
It's
literally the same exact thing.
Yeah. So we can expect this to go to the Supreme Court next. I mean, the ATF obviously is going to file an appeal, because that's what they do when they have their authority challenged.
Truthfully, it shouldn't make it to the U.S. Supreme Court. What it should do is any state level case should get to the state court, and they say, hey, look at this ruling. It's exactly in line with this.
Yeah.
It's exactly tailored to this. So it's in the same spirit, and
do so.
It should be done.
Yeah,
it shouldn't have to go to the Supreme Court.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Can I interject real quick? I think there's a more difficult argument to make here about shouldering pistol braces.
Why?
Because they're literally a short barrel. If you're basing this off of Cargill, he took the NFA at its exact words,
at the letter
of its law, and used it to say, hey, this thing is not this thing. When you're talking about disabled folks using a pistol brace in the way that it was designed to be used, you have an argument. But if you're talking about just putting a pistol brace on there and shouldering it, there's a more difficult argument to make. I'm not saying you can't do it. And I think the fact that the ATF flip-flopped back and forth on that a few times would help. And it's just arbitrary. However,
clear-cut.
It's not as clear-cut because the NFA specifically mentions short-barreled rifles and shotguns.
Okay, so the whole argument that it's defined explicitly in law kind of goes away.
However,
I think it works against us in this circumstance.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
However, to me, the pistol brace argument is, in my mind, easier than the bump stock argument. Because then it's like, okay, well, then what are we talking about between pistols and rifles? If it cannot be a short-barreled rifle if it's a pistol, period. So if the idea of what makes it going from a pistol to the rifle is butting it against something, well, if I take a pistol and I hold it against myself in a self-defense position and it's braced against my body, well, is that now a short-barreled rifle? Because, well, it's braced against something.
But that's also the funny part about this argument is that the people who don't understand ballistics and don't understand firearms, like in general, and that's the argument that they've been throwing back in Biden's face, is like, why do you want to make people have less control over their guns. It's a stupid thing for you guys to be doing. But, the NFA was put in place in the 30s to stop Al Capone and his buddies from carrying around short barrel shotguns in their trench coats. And
again, to me, it's like, well, what's the problem?
I agree.
You're
not going to get an argument from me on that. All right.
So arrest them on any of the other crimes they committed.
You could put a 410 shell in a friggin' Taurus Judge and put that in your pocket.
It wasn't the short-barreled shotgun that made him rob the bank.
Short-barreled shotgun. All right,
but you're right. I mean,
you know what they should ban is the trench coat that they used to hide.
We're speaking the same language.
Let me jump in and just before we close this topic, I would like to quote FPC, your tweet, upon this decision from Texas. The ATF broke the law by being overreaching, sneaky pricks.
I love FPC.
Right? So
just tell me how you really feel.
All right,
they're a bunch of children with law degrees. I love them.
I'm going to be interested to see how the appeals are written, but appeals are certainly coming.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this as of today, Arkansas, the prosecutors in the state of Arkansas have concluded that appropriate deadly force was used in the Malinowski raid. So the authorities in Arkansas investigated themselves and concluded that they did nothing wrong.
Wasn't that the FBI and the ATF though?
No, it was the ATF and Arkansas police. Right. Now, what they're justifying and how they're justifying it is saying that they entered a home on a legal search warrant. They were fired upon, and their procedure says if you are fired upon, you can fire back. That's all that they're saying. They're kind of ignoring the whole thing of like, the reason you were fired upon was the fact that you essentially broke into someone's home in the middle of the night to serve a search warrant when you could have just waited a couple of minutes.
So the
family they gave him an announced rule.
They gave him from the timeline that they released, because apparently there was some sort of camera running somewhere off kilter or whatever. The timeline says that they knocked and announced and kicked through the door in 27 seconds.
And they come busting in the door, guns blazing, or, guns soon to be blazing. When they get, my contention the whole time has been the guy operates, the dude flies a desk at an airport. They could have picked him up at work. For God's sake.
Yeah, they didn't need to do this. They didn't need to do this.
So the whole deadly force thing goes out the window when, but for the fact that
it was irresponsible.
They showed up there and did it that way, the guy would be alive. He would be on purpose. Maybe he'd be on trial, all that stuff, but he'd be freaking alive if they had not busted into dude's house before sunrise.
Not only did they bust in the door, they disabled any ability for him to identify who they were.
This was a huge overstep of and I don't care cameras, what they call it. It was a freaking no-knock raid. They're not calling it a no-knock raid because they didn't just go busting in. They knocked and announced, but I don't care what it is.
And the whole idea of, the being able to knock, announce, and then go in quickly is for someone who is going to destroy evidence.
Yeah, right.
So
what was he going to do?
Start throwing rifles into the fireplace?
Right? Yeah, flush them down the toilet. Yeah.
They had the option to serve that warrant anywhere from 6 a.m. to, I believe, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
I forget exactly the time that they had.
It was in bed.
And they knocked at 6:02 a.m.
It was malicious.
Yeah, so there's some lawmakers that are saying, "Hey, what the hell is actually going on here?" And the family's lawyer is like having none of it. Watch, no, this is no.
Of course.
So
I think the honest question is
things, including it would not surprise me to hear qualified immunity show up in this argument somewhere.
Absolutely, they treated what was essentially a paperwork white collar crime as trying to take down
El Chapo, like you said, right?
Yeah.
It's like this dude, he's not. All right. Mike Harris.
Yes, sir.
Goals Director of Public Policy.
Yes, I am.
Nothing going on.
That is literally never the case.
The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect goal.
I love that.
New place looks great. We're going to have a board meeting there this week. The
awesome.
New office looks great. I was there the other day. So yeah, training is going on. John's been barnstorming the whole state, going crazy.
New classroom is awesome too.
The classroom is fantastic. So yeah, if you're a goal member, stop by the office, check out the place, check out the folks. Looks like a real office.
It does. Yeah.
It's
awesome.
Cool. It's
I
cool.
love it.
So Mike Harris, Gun Owners Action League Director of Public Policy. Thank you for coming, dude. It's awesome. Always awesome having you here.
I love you guys. This is always fun.
In the Goal Podcast World Broadcast Headquarters.
Joe Biden's basement.
God, he amongst all the classified documents.
Yeah, so we could hide in there. We can make a tent.
Boxes of classified documents. Yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you for coming. It's really cool having you here. We'll do this again.
Sounds good.
Definitely. That's it for today. Thanks for listening in. Be sure to subscribe to the Goal Podcast and check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Goal Podcast MA, on YouTube at the Goal Podcast, or on Twitter at Goal Update.
To join Goal, visit goal.org. Click the Join Renew button on the top of the homepage.
If you have a topic you think we should cover, if there's something going on in your club or town, or if you have a question for the mailbag, shoot us an email at goalpodcast@goal.org.
The Goal Podcast is a production of Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts. The views and opinions expressed to those of the hosting guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Goal, its staff, or affiliates.